It's a real pleasure for me to be here, and all the more so because this is such an important issue to get right. So I'm absolutely married to the idea that this workshop should try to deliver the best possible way of achieving the right balance when we look for evidence. So I think it's very timely, partly because our world is now changing very quickly. So we're not making decisions nowadays in the same environment that we used to make even 10 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago. Because now the world is very complex, everything is global, there are lots of different pressures. And one of the things that I think we should all keep in our mind constantly is that things now happen very quickly. Whether it's the spread of information, the change in circumstances, speed is of the essence. And I really valued Guido's remarks at the beginning because he commented something about decision making. And it's obvious to me that the worst possible thing you can do is not make decisions. And I think that sometimes, because we try to take everything into account, we try to produce something that is perfect, we fail very badly because we delay and delay and delay. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure anyone benefits from this. So this speed pressure of the modern world is something that we have to really take account of. There's another thing that I thought I would say. I have to say I had a presentation prepared, which has not appeared here. No doubt this was my fault. So I'm just making this up as I go along now. So please bear with me. But the other thing that's important, we hear a lot about trust and transparency. Trust is a very important thing for me. And I want to just focus a few minutes on that. I think any one of us, if we examine what's valuable to us in our professional lives as well as our personal lives, it's trust. We absolutely require that as a fundamental prerequisite for operating effectively and well. And I had a bit of a surprise 18 months ago when I came to work with the Commission, because it's the only place in my entire working life that I've ever arrived where I am presumed to be guilty, we all are, until I can prove that I'm innocent. So I have to constantly prove that I am trustworthy. Now, although initially I thought it was a bit of a joke, actually it has a big impact. That has a really big impact on people, when you feel that you are constantly running to catch up to prove to people that you are trustworthy. So I think that's something that we need to consider, because for me, when we look at conflicts of interests, it's fundamental to the debate is the complete, not complete, but the often lack of trust between the different bodies who all want to get some positive output, but don't have this common ground of trust where they feel that we are all working towards the same output. Now, if we look at the Commission, and I think about where the Commission gets evidence for the policies that we make, and given that policies have really big impacts and sometimes some unintended consequences, it's very important that policies are based on the best possible evidence that people do have confidence in. So where do we get that evidence from? Well, I'm the chief scientific advisor to the president. I will alert him to issues, we will talk about issues, and I will get evidence from people. From the Commission itself has the Joint Research Centre, which is the in-house science service, which is excellent. It's underused, but it is absolutely excellent within the Commission. But setting that in-house thing aside, then we have the agencies. We're here at EMA. We have all the other agencies. We have expert groups, scientific committees, interest groups. We have business. We have NGOs. And each of those has a very valuable input. But in my mind, it only has a valuable input if each of these groups has the willingness and the maturity to have good, open-minded discussion, to start off with the attitude of, I will give them the benefit of the doubt and I will listen. Because until we do that, I think we have, from my point of view, a real problem. So in looking at conflicts of interest, one of the things that I hear a lot is that many in the wider environment are concerned about taking evidence or using the expertise of scientists who have connectivity with industry. And in a way, I find that comment or that attitude almost heartbreaking. And the reason is, for probably the last 20 years, we have encouraged those people who receive public funds to be able to do research, and actually that's an awful lot of the research that it is done in Europe. Public money funds that research and generates incredibly valuable knowledge, whether it be for policy or whether it be for business or environmental sustainability, whatever. And we are somehow saying now that, and what we've tried to do is say, when we generate that knowledge, it's not good enough for a scientist, and I'm still a research scientist. It's not good enough for me just to create the knowledge and tell other scientists about it, which is very easy. I have to make sure my knowledge has impact. And so I have to see, would it be useful for policy? Is there a business or a company that would find this knowledge interesting? Do the public find it interesting per se? So there's a real obligation on me, and that has been drummed into me as a scientist, and certainly it's now the attitude of all young scientists. I must look to have impact with this publicly funded research. So we do work with industry. I've set up a company in the past, and I've certainly worked with industry. And industry want to work, obviously, with scientists and people in the public sector, as well as their own in-house scientists. Are we now saying that somehow, because I've spoken to people in industry or I've set up a company, that I'm now fundamentally no longer trustworthy? That there's something very suspicious about me? And actually, in a way, there is humor here, because 30-odd years ago, I know that, or well, longer than that, almost 40 years ago, when I started my scientific career, I know that if I had said then, when I first started working in a university, that I'm speaking to somebody in industry, everybody would have been suspicious, and because that was quite an unusual thing to do. And I'm pleased that now, a young scientist, as I was all those years ago, when I start as a young scientist in a university, every effort will be made to help introduce me to people who might find value in the knowledge that I generate. That way, the citizen gets value from what we fund. So that's what's at stake if we don't use these people and find a good way of being open about any interests, being transparent, of course, but not rejecting. Because I think I can't emphasize enough in my mind that if we reject people who have broad interests, who are very valuable just because they have those broad interests and broad connectivity, if we reject them, every single one of us lose, no matter what stakeholder group we're in. It's to all our benefits that we get this right. And the last comment that I would make is, let's try and do things differently. And I think it's also useful for me sometimes to take stock, because I said the world moves very quickly, and it does. And sometimes we find we're somehow passively being moved into an environment, and you wake up one morning and think, how did this happen, that we are here? And all of us in the room should make sure we don't let something happen that damages everybody, that we address where there is lack of trust, and we all work hard. And this isn't an an industry working hard to get the trust of an NGO. It's everybody. It's NGO working to get the trust of industry and the Commission and with citizens. We all need to work at it. And we need to, because the prize is so big. So, should you have any confidence in what I'm saying, let me finish by asking one question. How many of you in this room over the last month have used Wikipedia? Could you put your hand up? Yeah, there's quite a lot of you then. Did you read the statement on Wikipedia about conflict of interest? Well, no, you wouldn't have, because there isn't one. So the people who mounted that information on Wikipedia, we don't know what their background is. We don't know what their conflicts of interest are. We don't know who they work for. But nevertheless, we use that information. And it has actually undermined a very interesting business model, and that's the business model of Encyclopedia Britannica, which had thousands of professors working to produce all that information and peer reviewing it and so on. We've somehow rejected that, and we now use this thing with no statement on conflict of interest and no real provenance of where the information comes from. And why do we do it? We do it because there is a corporate knowledge. Because if something goes up on Wikipedia that's simply nonsense, then it gets corrected. Lots of people look at it, and there is some kind of check and balance. So although I would say a little bit of warning, don't always trust what you read on Wikipedia, there is a mechanism which responds to the modern world and modern communication for ensuring some kind of validity of that information. Now, I wouldn't look to Wikipedia for the discussions that European Medicines Agency has to have, but just think about it. That is a response to the modern world, whereas some of our attitudes in terms of expert committees and so on is not responding in that way. So, like Mr. Kroot, I'm also here to listen and learn so I can take away the ideas that I hear here and discuss with people and try to make a change so that we can do things with the best possible evidence, with the best possible impact for citizens, for our decision-making business, and more generally for industry. So I think that's our challenge. Thank you very much.